Alright, before we begin with the Let's Play proper, there's something unpleasant that I have to get out of the way here. This is Devil Kings. This is the American version of Sengoku Basara that was localized by Capcom. And everyone hates this game for some reason, even though it was praised by critics for its time. And it actually got relatively above average reviews for the most part. But the people that hate it are people that actually know what the real Sengoku Basara is like. And their hatred is somewhat justified. It actually took me playing this game to really realize why. As you can see here, this is not a map of Japan. This is a fictional country that doesn't even exist, and I will address that later on. But anyway, our character selection here, you can see the biggest thing that people griped about, the most common complaint here is, oh, they changed the names, they didn't properly, they localized the names. So, some of the names are actually okay, like, Azure Dragon is actually pretty accurate for Date Masamune because, you know, he's the One-Eyed Dragon and whatnot, and they actually acknowledge that he's referred to as the One-Eyed Dragon. But for Sanada Yukimura to be called Scorpio, I'm sorry. So, the first fight we're going to be up against here is against the Maeda clan, which in this game they're called Lark and Bramble, which are two very interesting names. So this video is going to be just a version comparison between this version and the HD version of the original Sengoku Basara that we're actually going to be Let's Playing. For the sake of a version comparison, and also so I get to explain the absolute fundamental basics about the game before we actually get into this series Let's Play. So as you can see, this game is a large-scale battle hack-and-slash type of game, very similar to the Dynasty Warriors games or the Samurai Warriors series to be more specific, because being the title of Sengoku Basara, it's supposed to take place in Japan during the Sengoku era, and all the characters are based off of real historical people. Now, for some reason, Capcom, when localizing the game, decided that Americans would not want to play a game based off of Japanese history and decided to change the name to Devil Kings in hopes that it would sell based on the star power of Devil May Cry. Because it was from essentially some of the same development team, and being that it's Capcom and everything. Well, Shinji Mikami did not direct the game, which is kind of disappointing. It might have been awesome if he did. Not that the original version of Basara is not awesome. Fighting that group of enemies there actually illustrates exactly what I realize is wrong with this game as I played it through this time through. It took me until this recording actually to realize it. What they've done is not only have they horribly mistranslated the names and tried to localize them to disassociate them from their original Japanese origin, but they have made this game does not take place in Japan. All these enemies we're fighting, all the non-playable characters, are from different lands, and they have different culture and ethnicities. So the enemies we're fighting right here are not samurai. Look at them. They're like weird tribal guys with scythes and skull masks, and it's very bizarre. It does actually mix things up a little bit more, and the one fatal flaw of a lot of these hack and slash type of games is the lack of variety, that's for sure. So the fact that they become very repetitive is definitely a flaw, and the fact that this game actually does something to rectify that is kind of nice. So, you know, large hack and slash, we have a primary attack which combos for like 8 or so attacks before it ends, and then we have a secondary attack which in Basara it's supposed to be an attack that you can end combos with, or you can break combos with. It's supposed to be using the triangle button. It's supposed to be, you know, your secondary attack. But in this, it's an alternate fighting style that just uses certain animations from your primary fighting style to stun the enemies, and you can deal more damage to them with your primary. It's very strange. You're going to see me using that whenever their health turns yellow like that. It means they're stunned from a secondary attack. As you saw when I was doing my character selection there, or actually my loadout, there's a section there for your secondary attacks that you combine R1 and either square or triangle. That's not the case in the original Basara. Like you said, you just unlock more attacks here. There's a couple different enemies here. Of course, these guys are just regular guys with scythes. These guys would have swords if this was Basara. And there's another enemy type there, the guys with the horns that can call in reinforcements. The one thing that this game does have a problem with is the draw distance. So, a lot of times, a lot of enemies will not be right in front of you on screen at the same time, but those guys with the horns can spawn new waves of enemies after you've eliminated old ones, so it's very critical that you get rid of them whenever you see one on screen. And then this giant enemy right here, this giant mammoth-looking thing that launches bombs, arrows, and has a giant pendulum underneath. I don't even know what you'd call that, but that actually is in the original Basara. And we'll be getting to that. But anyway, this is definitely a game that's going to be outside of my genre, as you guys know, and typically I've never really been, admittedly, a big fan of the Dynasty Warriors games, or even this type of genre. And while Devil Kings itself is a decent game, I would never really have considered recording it. It's really the Sengoku Basara HD collection that really got me hooked on it. And the Sengoku Basara series in general, I'm a big fan of this franchise, whether it be the original trilogy that's been HD remastered, or it be 3 and 4, or the anime, or all that stuff. The anime is really good, actually, if you guys want to check that out. The other thing, let me get back to the gameplay mechanics here. We have a Fury drive that builds up there. It's called your Basara gauge in the original Japanese version, and it fills up when you kill enemies and that kind of thing. The more greater your combos get going, the faster it fills up. In this, however, it fills up much, much slower, and the overall flow of the gameplay is significantly dampened from that. I'm going to cut here to some Azure Dragon footage, or Date Masamune footage. Now here we're going against Hojo, the Hojo army. And again, look at these guys. These guys look Egyptian. They're all shirtless, they have scimitars, and they have, what are those called? The Sphinx masks or whatever. And this is ridiculous. Like, clearly we're playing as a samurai, and we're not fighting under samurais. Like, what is going on here? And again, they didn't even, because this character has not been changed all that much from the original Japanese version, he's still pretty faithful to his original historical counterpart, so being called the Azure Dragon still implies that he is the one-eyed dragon Date Masamune. So again, we're having Date Masamune fight Egyptian warriors with scimitars, and it's just like, what is going on? But whatever. The block button is on the opposite side of the controller in this version as it is in Basara, and I actually had to change the camera inversion a little bit. I was actually, despite the fact that most games I like the camera to be normal, I hate inverted cameras. It's easier to do inverted camera in a third-person game, and I actually kind of really got used to the inverted camera in Basara HD, so that's what I was using. Now, Masamune's stun attacks are actually really good. And part of his animations are from another one of his abilities you get later on in the game, which I will be showing off when we get to Basara. So let's see, I hope I covered all the fundamentals of the game here. Like I said, as you develop combos, you increase your gauge and that kind of thing. There's several different enemy types, so I'm going to be demonstrating a few more over here. Now normally there's some archers there's some guys on these winged kites that drop bombs into you from above. And like I said, there's the guys that blow the horn there. That's a good demonstration there of those guys that call in for reinforcements there. Because that guy called, and the whole wave of enemies just spawned right in front of me. So yeah, you will see a significant increase in obviously the graphics quality when we get to the HD version, but also the frame rates, just because the amount of enemies on screen, this game does run into some hangups occasionally, and the HD version just allows for complete chaos to be going on screen and no interruptions whatsoever. Really was a pretty good idea for an HD collection. I questioned it at first, and now I really don't. Also, Masamune's drive is also not nearly as, at least Yukimura's, when you activate it, it deals a unblockable series of combo attacks, and that's your attack. But with Masamune's, it basically just triggers War Dance, which you still have to manually attack when you're in that state, and it just wears off really fast, so it's not even worth it. And again, I'll be showing just how different that is when we get to the Basara version. What's some other things to mention about Devil Kings is different than Basara? I will be honest in its praise, the guy that does the voice of Devil King's Azure Dragon is pretty accurate to how the character should be played. He's kind of playing it as a one-note character, but he's not doing a half-bad job. And actually, everybody on the localization team did a pretty competent job. I mean, they did care about the end result. And for a game that was dubbed in like 2004, 2005, around there, it's pretty competent for its time. I think the guy that does the voice of Yukimura is the same guy that does the voice of Hotshot in the Armada game. So another callback there to a previous Let's Play. But it's not that bad for its time. I mean, it's pretty much indicative of the standards of its time, so that's okay. And like I said, if you were a fan of Dynasty Warriors back then, this game was so much more over the top than anything we had. Dynasty Warriors didn't get this over the top until about 6. So this game was really where it was at. And of course, we didn't realize how much better it was until we eventually get the HD collection. But this game did do very poorly. It's very hard to find. Copies are very rare. Almost nobody has heard of it. And obviously, they didn't release the other Basara games here in America until Basara 3, which was actually called Sengoku Basara, Samurai Heroes. It wasn't called Devil Kings or anything like that. It wasn't called Sengoku Basara 3 either, but you know. Before I forget, a very noticeable difference is the characters you can play as, because that's where one of the game's major flaws is. They've really cut out a lot of the content from the original Basara by making not a lot of the characters playable. Toshie and Matsu are not playable. I think Zabi is not playable. Shimatsu is not playable. I think Akaji Mitsuhide is not playable. In addition to that, right from the beginning of the game, you have the same selection of playable characters right from the beginning, except Kasuga is available instead of Kenshin. Of course, she's called Venus and he's called Frost in this game, but we'll forgive that. Ugh. So Kenshin has to be unlocked, and inversely, in the original Basara version, Kenshin is unlocked and you have to unlock Kasuga. So yeah, that's something, and you know, I guess that's an interesting idea. You know, let's give you the fan service character right away, so we'll attract more people to the game. But honestly, I think playing as Kenshin is a little more fun anyway. So, but yeah, and when you finish anyone's campaign, it doesn't matter who it is. You unlock Honda Tadakatsu, or Iron Ox as he's called in this game. In the original Basara version, you had to complete the game as every character to unlock Tadakatsu, because he's broken. But we'll be getting to that when we get to that. So that's all for Devil Kings. I just wanted a brief demonstration of the game and on to the real thing.